Sunday and wanting to run as far as I possibly can from every responsibility in pastoral ministry that I've ever known. To run from enduring the smiles and the handshakes, or worse, the grimaces and the complaints, wishing somehow that I could actually merge with the pavement that I'm standing on and be done with it forever. I'm talking about waking up at 2 a.m. and trying to think of one other reasonable thing that I could do with my life if I could only get a job. And fearing that the only reason I'm still in pastoral ministry is because I am unemployable, that I couldn't get a job. And recognizing how easily and how quickly, especially on the back of any sense of success, the Elijah syndrome gets you in a stranglehold. And then you start to say to yourself, you know, there's nobody who really understands this the way I do. There's nobody who really gets what this is like. And off we go, metaphorically, to find our own little broom tree and sit down under it and commiserate with ourselves. And somehow or another he sends an angel. You might not think of your wife as an angel, but you probably should. And she comes to you and she doesn't quote the Bible to you. She says, I brought you a bottle of water and a bran muffin. Give yourself a shake, would you? That kind of angelic visitation, which really hurt. But in actual fact, that's what happened to Elijah, wasn't it? They didn't sing him out of it. He said to him, hey, I'm not sure you're looking at things correctly. In other words, it was a reminder to him of the fact that he had experienced that was real, that was not enjoyable, that he genuinely felt what he felt, and yet he was wrong. It's surely fascinating that some of the most profoundly helpful hymns and or hymns that have become a large part of our hymnody in our circles have more than a tinge of difficulty at the very heart of them. You know, when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, is written out of the heartache of the loss of Spafford's 4 daughters. God moves in a mysterious way his wonders to perform. He plants his footsteps in the sea and rides upon the storm. Is written by Cowper, who spent 3 spells in a mental institution. So the idea that somehow or another the journey of ministerial privilege is a journey that takes us always up and beyond the cloudy terrain, the turbulent stuff, that you can always go higher than it. It's neither true to the Bible nor is it true to our own human experience. And so we have then to make sure that we are able to do what we've been asked to do, and to do it in a way that is in keeping with what we're told. So, not for shameful gain. We're to do it not in a grudging way, because we have to. Not in a greedy way, because we're looking for gain out of it. Not in a pompous or in a domineering way, because that is not the pattern of the Lord Jesus. And to do it in awareness of the fact that the chief shepherd is going to appear, and we will receive an unfading crown of glory. You see, part of the problem, I think, is that we look for glory now. But no, if you look for glory in what you're doing, there's not a lot of glory in what you're doing, even if you're doing it really well. I mean, just be honest. It's certainly not in the eyesight of the world, not in the people you went to school with, not even in the minds of many of your congregation. So if I'm looking for acceptance, for fulfillment, for security, for all of that, in some kind of glorified position in the now, I'm going to be sorely disappointed, because there is nothing that can provide that now. No, it is the prospect of glory then, which gives us the wherewithal to experience this now. So, in straightforward terms, we're to engage in it with a spirit of willingness, eagerness, and gentleness. Isn't it interesting, too, how our worst characteristics come out when we're pressed in this way? That one of the things that has come out of the circles in which many of us move is a high-handed, domineering, bullying type of perspective that has marked out local church leadership. It runs absolutely counter to what he's saying here. Not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock. And the pattern is, of course, a pattern of servanthood. Now, all of this, to move to what I suggest in the balance of the text, is a framework that if we get it on the wrong side of this, we only contribute to our own problems. And he mentions each of these things in turn. Clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Well, you see, when I think that I deserve more than I am getting, or when I live thinking that I'm not getting what I really deserve, then at the root of that, the problem is I think of myself more highly than I ought. You think about what this cost Peter to write. It's quite interesting, isn't it? He says, I'm writing this final little section here, reminding myself and reminding you that I share with you in this as a fellow elder. God resists the proud. Well, of course. He was the one that got it right. You're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then he began to remonstrate with Jesus. And then he began to distinguish himself from his colleagues. Even if they all leave you, Jesus, I'm your man. You can count on me entirely. Well, he was proud. He grew proud to his own destruction. It must have pained him to write this down, because this was a lesson that he himself had to learn most painfully. You know, Augustine says something along the lines that go like this: there is something about humility that appeals to my ego. And the idea that somehow or another, if we can only explain to everybody just how wonderfully humble, we are, you end up being such a pain in the neck. David Wells, and I left 2 books behind that I was going to quote from. Must have been supposed to be in the providence of God, but they were great quotes, actually, and it doesn't matter. But Wells, in one of his books, he says, humility is not telling people that you can't do things. We always have these people. Does anyone here can play the piano? Oh, no, I can't play the piano. I'm a terrible piano player. They're actually a good piano player. Well, why wouldn't they just say, yeah, I can play the piano? Well, it was humble. No, it wasn't humble. It was a blooming nuisance. We needed a piano player. No, humility is recognizing that I am not the center of the universe, that I'm not even the center of my own universe. We're helped, actually, when we go, for example, to the book of Job. And in the context of that, you have these amazing correctives. Stop and consider God's wonders. Do you know how God controls the clouds and makes his lightning flash? Well, no, actually, I don't. Where were you, says God, when I laid the earth's foundation? The Almighty is beyond our reach and exalted in power. And the creator of the universe has stepped down into time, has humbled himself, and therefore we should do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. See, what I'm trying to suggest is that we bring a lot of stuff on ourselves. And one of the problems is when we get a fat head. If you think about it in relationship, again, to Paul and in 2 Corinthians. Paul was a mega brain. Saul of Tarsus had a size 14 brain for sure. If that's a big one, I don't know. But he had it. He had it. He was phenomenally effective in leadership. And yet he writes, to keep me from becoming conceited, there was given me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger from Satan, so that I wouldn't get a fat head, he says. The insinuations of the evil one on the back of whatever that thorn was were such as to seek to bring him down. But it wasn't Satan that gave him this. Satan took this and did na with it. But God gave it to him. Have you ever thought about the fact that some of the things that dispirit us, confront us in our weakness, make us feel perhaps that we're not good enough to finish? That if only I was brighter, if only I was taller, if only I was in another place, whatever else it is. And God says, well, I'm going to help you with that. Painful, but absolutely necessary.